we're kind of there. But the secret to any sort, come over here, man. Don't do the profile. That's like shooting from the ball. The thing you need to know about directing, anybody can do this as long as you can communicate to somebody. If you can communicate a thought, if you can communicate what's in your head to anybody else, if you can communicate an idea, a question, get your point across, you're there. That's really all you need to do to direct. Now, some people be like, what about moving cameras and shit like that? It depends. You want to be that director? Helps to go to film school, helps to be born a Martin Scorsese or a Michael Bay, who like has a visual design in his head that like the rest of us are like, where'd you get that? But it's valid, you know. It's like that's how they see the world, and those cats normally take somebody else's script and bring their amazing vision to it. And you can be that director. I don't think everyone can be that director. I think with training, it's like being Batman. With training, you can be Scorsese. You know, if your parents die and you train really hard, you can be Scorsese. But for in terms of just directing, the kind of directing I did and stuff, like I lower the bar as much as possible. I tried. I mean, that's the only way I could get in. I couldn't get in the front fucking door because I didn't have any talent. But I figured if I could lower the bar, man, then people would be like, oh, that's where the bar is now. And other people would come across and shit. And then the Smith family, we excel at lowering the bar. My parents would never like climb high. My parents would like take the bar, put it on the ground, step over it, and be fucking accomplished. So in that respect, I was like, well, shit, man, apply that to directing. Then it's just literally kind of getting what's in my head onto the screen. And what was in my head at that point, you can still shoot. I don't want you to not shoot. Just not come over here. You sit right here. Don't put that on TMZ. Saying I'm fat again. So for me, I was like, well, shit, I can't do the bang zoom directing, but I can kind of take what's in my head, put it on a screen. And what was in my head at that time was very influenced by what I saw. Films that made me believe that I could be a filmmaker. Richard Linklater's Slacker, Hal Hartley's Trust, very simply shot. Jim Jarmusch's Stranger Than Paradise was a real eye-opener for me because Jarmusch literally just sets up the camera and lets shit happen in front of us, called mise en scene. He would literally turn it on, and that's the framing. You know, all the shit happens in front of the camera without much movement. Every once in a while, he'll put on some dolly tracks and kind of go through town for a block or two. But generally speaking, the camera turned on, shit happened in this little apartment. And what was intriguing about it wasn't like, where's that camera going to move? It was what was going on, the content. So I was like, I can't give him pictures, but I can give him content. Like, I know I could do that. And I was watching Richard Linklater's Slacker, not from the side, bitch. Oh my God. I said, I could do that, but I think I could kind of do what Richard did. Because what Richard did made it seem very, very simple. He didn't have any famous people in it. He didn't have any car chases, 3 acts, none of that shit. It was just very... I mean, shit, there weren't even characters, really, when you think about it. There were characters, but not characters as we traditionally think about them in film. If you've never seen Slacker, get your hands on it. You can watch it on fucking Hulu or Netflix or something like that. Where you probably... Like, Texas is this guy, he ain't from fucking Hollywood. He's not from New York. He is in the middle of Nowheresville, Bumblefuck, Texas. Him and his friends got together, made a fucking movie, man. If he could do this shit in Bumblefuck, Texas, I could do it in Bumblefuck, New Jersey. Now, the problem was, Bumblefuck, Texas was Austin, Texas. Had the New Jersey educational system been pretty strong, I would have known that, but I didn't know. Austin, for those who don't know, capital of Texas. Universities there, arts communities, like it's a place, a hotbed where something like Slacker definitely could occur. And I'm glad I didn't know it. If I'd known that, I would have been like, well, of course, then it's just like New York, just like LA, and I would have given my excuse not to try it. Like, well, he could do it because he's fucking in Texas, which apparently is like Shangri-La. Instead, I didn't know. Instead, I was just like, fuck, man, Texas, Nowheresville. It's not New York, it's not LA. Maybe I could do it in New Jersey. A little ignorance will carry you a long fucking way. The right kind of ignorance, you know? You gotta know kind of what you're doing, but just enough like, I think in the book I talk about it, it's called a reasonable amount of unreasonability. The idea of like, I'm gonna try something that not everyone tries, and that's kind of unreasonable. But it's a reasonable amount because you're not like, and I'll kill babies if I have to. You gotta be reasonable with how far you'll go for the fucking dream. Never hurt anybody to accomplish your fucking dream. So at that point I was like, shit, I'll do this. Let me give this a shot. So I needed to figure out directing fucking quick. I was like, oh shit, I'll go to film school. Didn't want to take 4 years to do it. Like I was 21 when I saw Slacker. And I said to myself, shit, man, this is what I want to do. fuck, I'm 21. Like, I wish I'd known this when I was 17, right out the gate, finish high school, boom, start pursuing this. So I figured I was late. Like, I'm like 4 years behind where I felt like I should be. So I was like, I can't go to fucking traditional film school. I'll go find a tech program. And I found this one. A lot of them exist now, like 1-year film school programs. New York Film Academy. There's one in LA. I'm sure there must be something similar in Chicago. But at that time, there was only one in the world that I know of, and it was called the Vancouver Film School. I saw an ad for it in the Village Voice, and I'd seen an ad for it like months. I'd been reading the Village Voice, that was indie film, just never thought about it until suddenly I was like, wait a second, the movie had a 1-800 number on it. So I was like, shit, free call. And I called I was like, what's the deal, man? And they were like, what do you mean? It's all there in the ad. And I was like, yeah, but how far do you go? How long is it? What's it cost? And you don't put that in the ad. It was 8 months, $9 grand. Still on the phone. 8 months, $9 grand, and I was just like, all right, I can get my head around that. 8 months to get to the dream, rather than 4 years of going back to fucking college and shit, trying college again. So I was like, all right, and then we try this out. And I said, can you send me the package? They did. And I filled it out, and I had nothing to show them. I hadn't shot anything or anything like that. But I just wrote, like, you know, when they give you a little space, why do you want to come here? Of course, I wrote 9 pages and shit. So I just overproduced in that area, sent it in. And then I remember I got the packet back with a letter, and it was like, congratulations, you've been accepted. And I was like, holy shit. And I've never, again, bar accomplishment down here. So, you know, I never tried to get into many colleges and shit. And suddenly here was this school in this very exotic location, Canada, the Pacific Northwest, saying, like, you are worthy and shit. I was like, oh, man. When I got there, you find out they take everybody. They're not sitting there going, who's better? I thought they read my fucking thing and they were like, clearly he has the dream. No, they were just like, clearly he has a check. And with everybody else. And what I got out of film school was meeting Scott Mosier and Dave Klein. Scott was my producer for years and years. Dave Klein shot the first 3 movies and the last 4 or 3, I believe. Guys I've worked with my entire life. That felt the way I did. Nearly 20 years, I know there are a lot of people that feel the way I feel. And that's built on telling stories that are very specifically me. So the idea of kind of like, let me tell something that's general and fucking like that classic story arc of boy loses or girl loses and then fucking has to beat the shit out of the world because of it. I don't know, it's like then I'd be doing Jersey Girl again, or Zack and Miri Make a Porno, which 2 movies I love, but those are my versions of somebody else's movies. Like when I saw Slacker, I wasn't like, oh my god, I want to be a filmmaker. One day, I'm going to make a movie about a guy who's fucking marries a chick and they have a kid and the lady dies and he's got to raise him himself. Like that was, Jersey Girl was never part of the plan, nor was I ever like, I want to make a movie about people who make porn. That wasn't part of the plan either. And it turned into something that I like and I'm proud of and people like, or seem to like. But for me, I'll always look at Zack and Miri as the moment where I was like, I ran out of shit to say. Literally, I had nothing to say. So much so that I just went back and started stealing from my own professional life. Like, I've always cribbed from my real life to tell the stories. But now, I hadn't lived any fucking life since 1994. I'd just been living in the movie biz. I started telling stories about making movies. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is a movie about making movies. And that's death to any fucking artist, man. Right then and there, you're just like, oh my god, I'm navel-gazing in a big, bad way. By the time we get to Zack and Miri Make a Porno, I'm navel-gazing even worse, because Zack and Miri Make a Porno, as much as I love it, is literally me taking the story of how we made Clerks, recasting it through a porn prison, with Scott as a girl that I get to fuck. You know? And that, to me, that's not like, it didn't have something pressing to say. It wasn't like, if this movie doesn't exist, what the fuck? That's a movie that exists solely because I'm like, holy shit, Judd Apatow's doing good with these movies, man. Movies, bromances, shit that like I kind of made my bread and butter on. I'm going to try and make one of those. So that's Kevin Smith trying to make a Judd Apatow movie. And that ain't Kevin Smith trying to make Kevin Smith. And that's why Kevin Smith got in. Every time I would sit there and think about it, I was working on Green Hornet, and they're like, you could write this and direct it, and I was just like, this isn't even my character, man. Like, I have no emotional connection to this. This character is born in an age I wasn't even around, born in the age of radio. And as much as I, like, love comic books, it doesn't mean I necessarily make a comic book movie, particularly if it's not going to be mine. If I was going to make, like, something that came from me, an original or something like that, then I could see taking the shot on it. But I was like, I don't know. I don't want to do that. I don't want to tell other people's stories. How I got here was by telling my stories. But I don't want to tell my stories in film anymore. It takes too fucking long, man, and it's way too expensive. Like, I wish I was a painter. If I was a painter, I have a blank canvas, slap some fucking color on it, and you'd know how I felt. There's my self-expression, because that's what it's all about, expressing yourself. If I was a fucking singer, open my mouth and I would emote, and you'd be like, oh shit, he's happy, or he's fucking blue. I know the way he's feeling. He's self-expressing by how he's singing, but unfortunately, and fortunately, it worked out very well. It's very fucking lucrative. But unfortunately, my chosen art form, the one that I was like, this is what I want to do, was film. And film is the only art form I know of where you say something stupid like this. I need to express myself. Give me $20 million and Ben Affleck. You can't do it alone. It's a massive process. And the budget of these things is sometimes the budget of a fucking small town. I made movies that cost more than what it cost to run Highlands when I was a kid. And shit like that blows your mind. You're like, you're paid to pretend when you're in the movie business. When you're a writer-director, you're literally paid to make pretend for a living. And it's kind of an honor. It's kind of a cool thing. You don't want to burn it, man. I don't want it. Other people function differently. But for me, that's not why I did it. I didn't get into it for the money. I got into it because I was like, if I don't fucking say this, I will die. Then by the time I got to Zach and Miri, it's like, if I don't fucking say this, I'll say something else. Because that's what I do. I fucking make movies, and they pay me to do this at this point. So I want to love it as much as I loved it in the beginning. In order to do that, I'm shutting it down. I don't feel like I have anything to say after it hits somebody. I really don't feel like, I mean, I thought Red State was a fucking brilliant little last gasp, but I got a bunch of shit to say, but it's all in there, you know, and I kind of made it a chop suey of a movie, so it's visually interesting as well, and something that people can dissect for years to come. That was the mainstream release, as you know. We took it out little just for that reason, because put that all on people's shoulders at once, that's a movie that gets discovered. Like, that was my favorite movie to make, because all my life I dreamed of making a movie like one of those, oh, that's fucked up movies. Like, when I was a kid, we loved, oh, that's fucked up. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Put that movie in, you're watching, go, oh my god, that's fucked up. And you immediately take it to your friend's house and be like, you gotta watch this. You're like, why? You're like, it's so fucked up. You're sit there watching, you're waiting for the part, and you're watching their face. You get to it, they're like, oh my god, it's so fucked up. And that was your currency when you were young. You would do that with shit like Monty Python, the fucking Holy Grail. You'd be like, have you ever fucking seen this? If you were 7 years old rolling around with Monty Python, man, you were ahead of your fucking time and shit. That was the currency, the pass-along thing. And Clerks was like, oh, you got to see this movie. It's bad or it's weird, but they would never say it's fucked up. Like you got to see this movie. It's fucking funny. But they would never say, oh, it's fucked up. Fucked up is reserved for shit like Reservoir Dogs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Donnie Darko was fucked up. Like, when I went over to fucking England, man, like, that movie played very limited here in the States. I went to England, and it was like fucking the British thought Richard Kelly had invented not just cinema, but everything. Have you seen Donnie Darko? It's fucked up. And I never got to make a fucked up movie. Dogma got kind of close, but it had too many stars in it to be truly fucked up and shit. And I never really went the distance and ever had a fucked up movie in me. And then suddenly one day, I was like, oh my god, I got one, man. It was all a combination of elements, like fucking Michael Parks, falling in love with Michael Parks, and From Dusk Till Dawn, and fucking watching Malcolm Ingram's interview with documentaries that really fucking captured my imagination, because Malcolm went one-on-one with the fucking beast and shit, man. Malcolm sat there with from up in Canada. He's a bear in the gay community, which means like he has dick all over him. He's a dude who looks like me and wines. It's kind of no different than my relationship with my wife. He gets chubby chasers that are good-looking dudes as opposed to good-looking chicks. So, like, Malcolm is a dude who looks like me, and he'll be with a dude that looks like he should be on the cover of fucking Men's Health. And they're like, what are you guys doing together? Are you training him? And he'll be like, no, he's fucking me. Like, and that's it's a beautiful thing. Malcolm's a bear, and the dudes he fucked, they're called cubs. Isn't that cute? So, Malcolm's doing this documentary, Small Town Gay Bar, and he sits down with the beast. And the thing about Malcolm is he passes. He doesn't come across like, you know, stereotypically gay or something like that. He's one of those dudes that could totally fucking pass, and does all the time. My brother is gay, married to a dude for 20 years and shit, which is like 60 years in the straight community. But the moment and my brother, you can sit there and talk to him and shit, and you're like, oh no, he seems like fucking, he's not gay, could be straight, could be a wife at home. You get one drink in him, suddenly he's like, oh, girlfriend, you know. You're like, he's definitely gay. So Malcolm, you could pour gallons of booze down his throat, infuse him in a pool, like Ross is like, bah, that's his fucking tone. Malcolm is bah, fuck John. Perfect Malcolm. 1995, we're at the San Diego Comic Con. about to show Mallrats, and there's a book that Malcolm's reading about the Twilight Zone accident where kids got killed years ago. John Landis was the director. This movie has nothing to do with him beyond he saw it in the theater once years ago. Closes the book, he's like, fucking Landis. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, if I ever meet him, I'm going to punch him in the fucking nose. And I said, why? He goes, he's an arrogant prick. And I was just like, well, Malcolm, he's going to be at the Mallrats premiere next week. And he's like, oh. Well, I can't go, you know. I love Malcolm to death, but he's such a fucking blowhard and shit, and bah, that's what he sounds like. So if you get him drunk, even then he's not like, bah, he's just bah. Were you passing with Phelps? And he goes, I was. I was like, you didn't tell him? He goes, no, but if he would have asked me, I would have told him. So I was like, you never told him you were gay? He's like, no. So I was like, but if he asked you, he's like, I would have told him. I said, so what'd you do the whole time? He goes, I listened. I said, were you scared? And he goes, I was a little scared in the beginning because he's sitting there talking all this hate about me and my people and shit. When he's literally talking about, you know, God hates fags. I'm the fag in front of him that he's hating on, that God is supposedly hating on and shit. So in the beginning, it's abrasive. He said, but then about like 10 minutes in, hate just gets repetitive. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't reignite into something new. It's just more fucking hate. He's gone, so it gets boring. So my attention started to drift. So he's like, I'm looking around the room and shit, and I see his grandson is behind him off camera, his 25-year-old grandson, leaning against the wall and shit. And Malcolm's like, and I could see in the outline of his big. So he's like, I just started paying attention to that. Really? He's like, yes. Preaching hate, God hates fags. I'm staring at his grandson's cock, and he goes, I felt that was kind of a big win for the gay community. So fucking Malcolm was the dude who's always fucking been around and shit, always been in my life, always been the guy that's like fucking encourages the dream. Why did I bring up Malcolm in the first place? I lost my place.
Talking about quitting movies.
Quitting movies. Fucked up. Thank you. So Malcolm showed me his doc, and suddenly, boom, another piece of the fucked up puzzle. I need you to follow me around the country. Another piece of the fucked up puzzle was in place. I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna make a movie about these fuckers. Malcolm, after I watched the interview and shit, I said, Malcolm, man, do you have more of this? And he goes, yeah, it's like an hour-long interview, because there's only about 5-10 minutes in small-town gay bar. I said, let me see the whole fucking thing. So I'm watching the interview and shit, and at one point in the interview, you hear Fred Phelps is like talking to Malcolm. Malcolm's off camera. You hear him engaging in the interview in the beginning, asking questions. Phelps rolls, and at one point, like 20-25 minutes into it, you hear Phelps go, are you looking at me? And then you know that's the moment Malcolm is looking at his grandson's cock. Awesome. But the interview is scary, man. So I called Malcolm afterwards. I was like, dude, man, I'm watching this. This guy got down like just paint him up like and be like, look at these assholes. Credits, man. That'd be a make it like a Grindhouse movie. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, these fuckers, they go to funerals when people have died. No bodies, maybe they start making the bodies, right? And he goes, that's stupid. I said, fuck you, I'll write it myself. And suddenly I had another piece of the pie where I was like, ooh, I can make one of these fucked up movies and shit. And the third element of it was just keeping it inexpensive enough that you could do whatever you wanted. If we had done that for like 10 or 15 million bucks, a lot of the rough edges would have had to go away and shit like that. But since we did it for, it was 5 million, but after the tax rebate, 4 million, you could make one of those fucked up movies. And now when people talk about it, I see on Twitter like, I saw Red State's fucked up, and I'm like, yeah. The kid that saw fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 years ago finally got to make that movie before I did. He made that movie Vulgar about the clown who gets raped and shit. And that's he got to make one, and shit, and years later I got to make one, and that kind of me where I was like, yeah, I'm an artist, bitch. I'm not just a fucking director and shit. I used to hear myself in interviews say stuff for a living. Fucking stand for that. Kid who saw Slanger would probably like to get in a time machine, come forward, and fucking beat the shit out of the guy who said that, and then also be like, this is for being fucking twice our size, you fat piece of shit. What happened? So for me, to realize that I got to a point where I was like looking at it just as what I do for a living and not what I wanted to do, I realized I can't do that. Like for me, it was never about jump in film, become the best, win fucking awards, make money and shit. It was just about like, I want to tell my stories, man. I saw other people making movies. I was like, why not me? There was a little hole that existed. You know, I'd watch comedies and shit, and the comedies I grew up watching, it's like, we're taking on a fucking dean, or, you know, we're fucking taking on the army and shit. Me and my friends would never do that. So it's like I couldn't identify with those characters. Like, join the army just to fuck off in it? They'd probably court-martial you. We couldn't watch Stripes and enjoy it. We're like, this doesn't. So for me, I wanted to see like something about me and my friends. We didn't get into wacky adventures. We sat around and talked about shit. That's all we did. We were just talking. Talking about fucking Star Wars. Talking about pussy and shit. So I was like, that movie don't exist. Let me try and make it. So I could see me and my friends up there. And I made it, and now they exist. And throw a rock and hit a bromance, so it feels like, well, my fucking, what I came here to do is fucking done, and otherwise I'm just sticking around, fucking, you know, it's like having a function in a play, and you're in the first act, and you're the guy that comes out, and there's just like, turkey for all, and that's all you do, and then fucking, like, for the rest of the play, you're just like, sorry, and you're in everybody's way, and shit like that, and, you know, and your parents come, and they're like, nothing else? You're like, nothing, turkey for all, you know, so I did it, I said turkey for all and shit, and I've said turkey for all many performances, and now I'm just like, let me see if I could go to another show and say something else. So instead of like just sitting here and fucking treading water, I was like, fucking, let me go out there and try other things that catch my fancy and shit. Film opens up a lot of fucking doors if you're interested. They're not financially lucrative doors, or at least they're not at first. Like years ago, I was just like, I want to write comics. And my agent, my lawyer were like, why? Well, how much money is in it? And I was like, nothing, dude. It's like, you get maybe $100 a page. And they're like, are you shitting me? Why? You could write a movie and make $100,000 right now, first-year filmmaker. I was like, yeah, but I love comic books. Sometimes you do shit just for the love, and then years later it aggregates into like comic books are the dominant culture now and shit. So suddenly something that I used to fucking do and still do because I love it is now something that you can earn off of. We have a fucking TV show called Comic Book Men, based on shit that we would just sit around and do for free and talk about for fucking free. So suddenly there are other places to go. Podcasting obviously is the huge passion for me. If you don't know, I have a podcast network called smodcast.com, and I fucking live on it. That's where all our best shit is, man. Fuck film. I could sit there with a podcast, literally open a laptop, jam a microphone in, or not, depending on what kind of sound I want, and dump fucking shit onto it, put it online, and the next day start all over again. With a movie like Red State, it took me 4 years before I wrote it to the point of everyone seeing it. You know how tough that is? To be somebody who lives to self-express and you're just sitting on that information for 4 years, it's a long process. It involves so much money and convincing people to line up their schedules. And in my case, you got to go to people and be like, can you do this for nothing? Can you do it for less than what you normally do it just because, you know, fuck, I'm a good guy or something like that? So when I sit down to podcast, I don't need that. I don't need money. Don't need fucking a bunch of people. I need one other person technically. Sometimes if I need to, I could probably go solo and shit. I'm very masturbatory. But sit down with one other person, they don't even have to be fucking talented. You know what I'm saying? I sat down with my mother to do 4 hours of podcast, some of the most brilliant podcasting I think I've ever fucking done. Granted, I fed her a bunch of weed cake, but whatever. She was in on it. I was sneaking on her and whatnot. But, you know, the tongue opened up and the stories came rolling and whatnot. And it just made for great oral conversation. Don't want to say oral in the same sentence with my but it's good content. We're all content generators, right? Every one of us has a fucking back pocket story. I don't give a shit who you are. If you're a shrinking violet who's like, no, I don't have to fucking go and hang out with people. Every one of us has a fucking back pocket story that's ready just for that fucking moment where you're in a party or a fucking gathering. There are a bunch of people there and an eye of Sauron falls on you. You know, and fucking the moment is there and you have to take it. And we keep that back pocket story and shit, and happens in that moment and you're just like, my friend fucked a dog once. Like, really? And you got him for like 5 minutes or something like that. And once you have that, you probably have another story and shit. We all have that. So at the end of the day, what's more interesting than that? I don't want to watch yet another fucking story about some motherfucker beating up some guy. You killed my parents, bitch. I want to sit around and listen to a story about, like, my friend fucked a dog. Because you're never going to see that in a movie. You're never going to hear it on the radio because of fucking FCC. You're never going to see it on fucking TV unless it's on cable and shit, and then it's one episode or something. But, like, podcasts, you get into the nooks and crannies of everybody's lives, and we're all fucking weird and interesting. So instead of, like, being entertained as we've been for years, the line is blurred, man. It used to be like a very fucking strong line between the entertainer and the entertained. And in the age of podcasting, that goes away. It's completely blurred. Entertainment has become democratized because you could sit there and be like, here's my show. That's what I love about it. They're called fucking shows, man. They don't call them podcasts anymore. They call them shows. We have like 26, 30 shows on my network. And the show is you just sit down and start talking to some motherfucker. On this show, I talk to my wife. On this show, I talk to fucking Ralph Garman. On this show, I talk to Jason Mewes. On this show, I talk to Scott Mosier. And each one's a separate idea. Like, I'm cresting toward my favorite idea ever. There's a podcast I want to do, a whole show. It's simply called this. It puts it right on Front Street. Fat Man on Batman. That's a fucking show, man. host a show called Fat Man on Batman, number one, I'd be like, why? Wait, why am I? Which one am I? But now it's possible to fucking do shit like that. Now you think it, dream it, and fucking do it. And at least in terms of podcasts, it goes for so many other things. Film, much tougher. You know, it requires money, it requires people to get involved and shit like that, people to put away their time. It even demands more on the audience. That's where I started going with all the podcasts and shit. Audience, man, we used to be able to be like, hey, we got our shit coming out. You come see it. I won't be there. Pay for it. Fucking whatever. It ain't like that anymore. There's way too much fucking competition. When we made Clerks, fucking think about this. You could not jump on the internet and look at a video of fucking 4 people fucking a horse. If I knew that existed, I never would have made Clerks, man. I was on the line going, this is fucking astounding. Now there's competition. It used to be like movies, fucking TV, maybe theater to some degree, fucking video games, like 8-bit video games. And that was it. That was it. Now it's like people hold more possibility on their fucking smartphone to do way more interesting things than simply watch a movie. So, you know, for me it was about like visual medium for a dude like me that tells small stories doesn't make sense anymore. At the end of the day, it's like it demands you to put shit aside, spend 2 hours looking at this thing. I started going the other way, where I was like, you know what, man, we can live in the audience's white noise, the nooks and crannies of their life. We can be in their ear. Like, I love radio, love fucking morning radio. And for years, I was like, these guys got a cold, man. They understand the job. You get up, and you're sitting there fucking spilling your heart out for 2, 3, 4 hours of fucking morning. You go home, it starts again the next fucking day. You get to say whatever you want. Everybody in this life wants merely 3 fucking things. Fucking, food, and to be heard. Fucking and food's pretty easy to cover, man. Sometimes you can combine them both or trade one. But to be heard, that used to be a lot more difficult. Now it's fucking easy. If you got a laptop, you fucking have the possibility to be heard. If you got social media, you have the possibility to be heard. And that encouraged, I think you're going to see a nice renaissance, man. A lot of artistry going to come out of that. And that's good, because I'm winding down. I don't have anything imperative to say anymore. Now I'm getting ready to sit back and be entertained and stuff. So I'm happy to put it aside. It's not a fucking bad thing. It's just I fell out of love with my art, and that's not good when you're an artist. At one point, I went into career management mode, where I was just like, all right, these are the movies that are being made. Let me see if I can put my ideas into these structures and move forward like that. This is how movies get financed and whatnot. Let me see if I can do my stuff in their world. And that's not artistry, that's career management. That's walking a tight wire. How to balance within the machine and shit. About your art, man. You gotta love your fucking art. Be like, yeah, me and my art are friends. Like, sometimes you meet those motherfuckers like 10 years. You're like, how often you fuck? And they're like, you know, because number one, they don't talk about that shit. But when you finally get it out of them, they're like, oh, like once a month. We're like best friends. And you're like, that's cool. You can't feel about your art that way, man. You gotta feel about your art differently. You gotta feel like fucking when you're a girl in college, that fucking dude that almost made you give up the rest of college because you're like, oh my god, he's the best. Or fucking if you were in high school, the dude in high school that meets the fucking chick that changes. Hang out with your boys and shit, and you meet this girl, and she's fascinating. Everything she says is fucking interesting. Everything she does is interesting. She's funny. She's got a unique perspective and shit like that. She thinks like you and not like your friends and shit. She thinks like the inner you, not the one you share with your fucking friends. And you're like, hey man, I'm gonna start hanging out with her a little more. And they're just like, where are you going this weekend? I'm like, we're gonna see a movie. And they're like, oh, you're hanging out with that bitch. You're gay. I'm like, yeah. See you guys later. And you're fucking hanging out. Thank you. You're hanging out with her, and everything about her fucking enriches you, man. Everything about her is fucking fascinating. You go to sleep, you can't wait to wake up. You just want to hang out with her again, man. You just want to be around her. Live fucking in high school, living in 2 separate houses. If you could, you'd fucking live in her room with her and just wake up and be like, hi, what do you want to do today? And she's okay with it. She don't think you're a fucking stalker. She's not like, oh, I need space. Kevin, you're too grabby. She loves it. She gets it. She understands you and shit like that, man. She's the kind of bitch that's like, let's go to Denny's to eat. She likes Denny's. She's not like taking the fucking Morton's. No, she's like Denny's. Give me some fucking moons over Miami. I'm happy. And you're like, yeah, here, man. You sit there across the table from her at Denny's, eating your moons over Miami, and you're trying to balance a fucking potato and some egg on the fork because it's tough. Because forks are small and it's falling on. So you fucking shirt a little bit, and you look over because you know you're caught, and she's looking at you like a bedroom eyes. I don't know how to describe it, rather than like fucking ew, Kevin. Just looking at you kind of lovingly or something like that, and you're like, what's the matter? What? And she's like, let's go fuck in the bathroom. Denny's, man? I was like, we got this whole couple staring at us. Right? Old couple's sitting right to your left, and she thinks, the old lady, that she might have heard what the girl said, so they're looking over like this with a raised fucking eyebrows. Like, these people alone know we're fucking. You're not, they know what you're talking about. You can't talk about this. She's like, look, I'm going to be in the bathroom waiting to get fucked. I hope it's you comes through the door. She goes, you know, what the fuck am I supposed to do, man? Like, because you're nervous as shit, man. You're just not done. You haven't paid for the fucking meal yet. Fucking in a public space is not your thing. If she could just wait 15 minutes, you could fuck in a bed or something like that. Or in the back of the car, 3 minutes in the fucking parking lot. She's fucking gone. You're like, what do I do? And you fucking look over to the old couple, and the woman's doing this kind of shit. And the husband's like, go. So you're like, fucking, man, you get up and you rush to the bathroom, and you're praying to Christ. It's the boys' room. You open the door, and no, she ain't in there. You open up the girls' room door, and you can see her feet under the stall. You're like, fuck, she's gonna make me work for it. You get inside, you get in the stall, you lock the door, you slide your foot under the fucking stall so you can hold the bathroom door. A warning sign, maybe stop fucking for a second, be like, squirrel. And then fucking go back to it, and just shit out of you against that fucking wall in the Denny's bathroom. And that's how you gotta feel about your art, man. You gotta love your art so much you'd fuck in the Denny's bathroom. And I didn't feel about my art that way for a long time. And then I got to a point where I was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I like about it. This is what got me here, man. You gotta respect art. At least in my case, art opened the door for me, gave me everything I have in life, introduced me to wonderful people, introduced me to my best friend, a woman that fucks me on a regular basis and shit like that. Art gave me so much, and I had to start giving back. It's not enough to just sit there and be like, I'm in art now, because I wasn't. I was being artless in my art. So then I wanted back to being an artist. I was just like, I'm going to be an artist, and that doesn't mean making films. You know, I've done that a bunch, and obviously it doesn't light my fire the way that some of these other things do. So I want to investigate all that other shit, man. It seems weird. Somebody on Twitter today was just like, last night, I guess, the boyfriend was just like, my boyfriend and I got in an argument, or I was arguing with my boyfriend. He says that you're abusing all forms of media because you're terrified you're not going to be, terrified you're going to be forgotten or something like that. And I was like, well, I mean, I think that's why anybody does anything they want to do, not because they're terrified, but not because they're terrified they're going to be forgotten, but they just definitely want to be remembered or something. I said, but like, for me, that's not why I do shit. Like, you don't get into podcasting because you're like, I'm afraid nobody's going to remember me. Nobody fucking knows podcasting or anything like that. You don't write comics because you're like, oh my God, I got to write my name in the giant book. Stan Lee exists. Nobody gives a fuck that I write comics. You do those things because you fucking love them, man. And when you love them and you play them full out with utter passion and shit, sometimes it translates. I fell in love with Wayne Gretzky so much. I'm not a sports guy by any stretch of the imagination. I played a little bit of Little League when I was in fucking school. My parents made me. I looked terrible in the outfits and shit. And I remember at one point they put me at shortstop because I was always the dude out in fucking left field. And one day, shortstop was sick, and they were like, you got shortstop. So I'm at shortstop, and I'm talking to third baseman John Paul Brazel about Return of the Jedi. Fucking ball goes right by me. At that point, I knew it would never be fucking sports for me and shit. So I was never into sports, but I started reading about Wayne Gretzky because I watched his video collection they did on CBC in Canada. It was called Hockey: A People's History. Real beautiful. Covers the whole history of the game and the land that spawned it. It's kind of like baseball by Ken Burns, but it's about hockey in Canada. So it reintroduced me to Wayne Gretzky. I mean, I knew who he was. I've heard the name and shit. But suddenly, like, I fell in love with this dude, and I tried to figure out why, and years later I know why. Here's a man who fucking applied his passion, in his case, fucking hockey, with so much fucking utter enthusiasm, so much fucking love, so much passion, so much fucking joy, that it seemed bigger than it was. So it made it seem like, oh my God, this is important. It's not fucking important. A stick and a puck on ice is ridiculous as like, hey man, I want to stink palm you on the escalator. Like it's just a pastime. It's shit we fucking look at for a little while to forget that we're the only species on this planet that cognizes its own death, that one day we're gonna fucking die. So we fill our lives with fucking distractions and abstractions and whatnot. Sports no different than fucking movies, entertainment in general. But if you ply your fucking trade with that much passion, and like Wayne Gretzky played hockey like he was saving the fucking universe, you do that, man, and that inspires people. Maybe not to play fucking hockey, but in their own fucking way. To take something so stupid and do it so beautifully and so poetically and with such fervor, with everything, to pour your entire life essence into it, man, that translates. That reads to people. We all like to be inspired. We all like fucking passion shit. Even the most cynical motherfuckers in this group People are like, yeah, whatever. We all like to be inspired, man. Even the most cynical person in this room will roll one tear at the end of Field of Dreams, if you're a boy. If you're a girl, something else will do it. Probably virgin suicides. But I'm not really sure. But we all want to be fucking inspired, man. And so sometimes when you see someone that does something like fucking inspires you and shit, and they're doing it so insanely passionately, it touches a fire in you. Wayne Gretzky lit it for me, even though this dude hadn't played hockey in like fucking 10 years. I was inspired by the stories of what he did and his father telling him like that crucial piece of information, which became my mantra. He's talking about the game, talking about hockey. He's talking about anticipation of where the puck's going to be. And he said to his kid, Walter Gretzky says to young Wayne Gretzky, don't go where the puck's been. Go where it's going to be. That's a very simple notion in hockey. The idea is if you're puck chasing, you're being cornered, caught up in the fucking scrum and shit. Everyone's puck chasing. Be the person that goes where the puck is going to be. If you can be that person that's kind of there where the puck breaks free and you're there, you've got open ice, motherfucker. It's you and fucking twine. You and a goalie and twine at that point. And one-on-one's a lot easier than fucking 6 on 5 on 1. So the notion of like, that captured my imagination. I was like, oh my God, that works in everything, not just hockey. Motherfucker, like, just go where the puck's gonna be. Stop puck chasing. I was puck chasing. Zach Amiri, total puck chasing. That's a dude that's just like, here's what a puck is, man. Let's jump in the fray. Fuck that. Stay out of the corners, man. Figure out what a puck's gonna be. Be there when it fucking hits. You look like a genius, and you get to do what you want to do, man. And when we all go puck chasing, we get fucking injured and shit. You're out on open ice. You can be poetic. You can do shit. You can impress people. You can show off. You can fuck around in a way that you can't when everybody's closed in on you. So for me, suddenly that changed everything. Suddenly I was like, yeah, I want to do my shit passionately. I don't care what it is. If it's not film, I'll do it for as long as I got it. Red State is obviously a movie that's made of nothing but fucking pure passion. Hit Somebody has been written on weed, nothing but weed. I sit there and I go, and I watch hockey videos and I cry and I start writing. Oh, it's pure emotion, motherfucker. It's funny. This is just such human drama and shit. And I'm gonna burn it. I'm gonna burn the candle at both fucking ends to try to fucking give back what got me here, man. Being an artist, pushing at the edge of the envelope, introducing me to y'all. And now I just want to push at the edge of the envelope again and fucking give back, do again. Like, that's why people go, why are you walking away from film? I'm like, I'm just going to stop writing and directing movies. That's it. I'm going to do everything else. And in terms of film, I ain't walking that far away. Smodcast Pictures, we take fucking people's movies out. Like, that's the idea. We took Red State out first. And I said at Sundance, like, well, first we're going to take Red State out, and then when we're done with Hit Somebody, we're going to turn it over to you guys to take your fucking movies out and shit. A bunch of fucking jackasses was like, no, he won't. He's fucking imploding and all this fucking dopey shit. And then less than a fucking year later, man, Phase 4, our Canadian partners on Red State, they were like, hey, man, we hear you want to do this Podcast Pictures thing. I said, yeah, we're done with Hit Somebody. We're like, start it now. Like, we'll jump in with you, partner up and whatnot. So, boom, we launched Smodcast Pictures. We picked up our first film, and it was this beautiful little movie called Bindle Stiffs, made by 3 17-year-olds. And they finished it 3 years later when they were fucking 20 for about $30,000. Wonderful movie. It actually went to Slam Dance and won the Audience Award and shit, but that's pretty much where it would go. So now suddenly, like, we have the opportunity to take that road structure that we built with Red State and stuff, apply it to everyone else's movies. So we go out, I guess, in June or something like that with Bindle Stiffs and do a tour around the country. So folks who make movies